What's up, and welcome to the first ever. We don't know what this is called. I'm obviously BarrowsBOY. With me, my co-host, Mr. Iamkeeferz.
Keef and the boy.
Keef and Boy. We don't have a name for this podcasty thing, but basically, we're going to be talking about our personal experiences over the last week or so of gaming. We're thinking about a once-a-week thing. Current events in RuneScape. We're going to be talking about some player design stuff on the Reddit, and then we're going to be taking Q&As. So if you have questions, obviously in the future we will be reaching out to you on all sorts of social media platforms. That's awesome. So, kicking it off, as awkward as this may be, we're going to talk about what we've been doing lately in the gaming world. And for me, that's been Corp FFA, and it has been a spectral of a good time. All I can get is spectrals, and it's very disappointing. I don't know, Keith, if you've done any corping.
I haven't
07.
corped since probably about 6 months ago or so. It's been a while. I've given up.
So that was the same for me, except this summer the whole plan was like friends were like, hey, we're going to Nightmare Zone. All my lazy ass friends were like, we're going to Nightmare Zone our stats. We're going to be ready for corp. It's going to be awesome. And I was like so hyped. Fun stream content, like goddamn it, get me away from Slayer and all this boring shit I've been doing. So like corp, super excited. And all I can get, me and my team, all we can get is spectrals. Not to mention half of my team is either not interested or now false banned. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but
False band.
I keep getting spectral sigils, man, and it's like it's seriously, it's this like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's so frustrating to get that lucky but be so unlucky. I think it breaks down like something like 1 in 5. Someone will be able to correct me on this, but it's like 1 in 580 for a sigil at all. And each individual sigil obviously have their own drop rates, but there are 7 sigils on the sigil drop table. 3 arcanes, 3 spectral, 1 Ellie. So when you land on the spectral, that 32 mil pile of dung, you're sadly left with a less than 50% of getting that, and I keep running into spectrals, and it's very sad.
That's what they're at now, 32 mil.
They are 32 mil. The good news, and obviously we'll get to this later a little bit, but Cerberus theoretically could be reviving the spectral. They've mentioned some things. For those of you who don't know, Cerberus is the planned, voted on in this new batch of Slayer updates that we're getting. Cerberus is going to be the new Slayer boss, the new Hellhound Slayer boss, coming in with the Abbey Demon boss. 91 Slayer requirement, bringing in a bunch of whole cool content. I'm sure you can find out more information on that if you want to. But on to you, Keith. What have you been up to?
All right, this week has been pretty slow, but a couple weeks prior, a lot of the guys that watch me know that we spent a month at Zulrah, and originally it was kind of funny. I went to Zulrah just to show how bad I am at things like Zulrah. I'd never done it before, never really even tried it, and ended up picking it up pretty quick. Actually, it took 4 tries before I killed it, I think, and just kind of started doing it. And at first it was just like, I could use money, I'll start doing it, make some money, and then RuneFest kind of got more popular around Twitch, and Kirk hit me up and was like, you have to go, and I'm like, nah, and he's doing the whole just ask for donations, and I'm like, well, I don't really need them because I can make it at this point, so I'll just see if I can make money for RuneFest straight through Zulrah. And I did end up getting some help from the community as well, but I ended up making probably around 550 mil in a month of doing Zulrah.
And you're at like over what, like 2,400 kills or something ridiculous.
As of now, I'm at 30.
3,000 something.
Yeah, 3,400 somewhere
Which,
around there.
I mean, that's impressive as all hell. Let's put
Not
it that
showing
way.
my kill count.
And when you're making a mil an hour, at least,
It's
that's
about,
where it is.
2 to 2.5 mil an hour.
Really?
Without drops at all. Yeah, that's with dope. And then, not to mention, while doing it, I had probably the most insane luck at Zulrah to begin with. For the first 1,500 kills.
We don't need to talk about how mad
11, I am. 11 Tanzanite fangs in 2,000 kills or some crazy shit. So.
And it's a shame that you picked this up so late, because those Tanz fangs, had they been like within a month of release, 20 mil each, like guaranteed.
Yeah, but on the downside of that, if I had swapped over, Third Age would have never happened because it was during that whole phase. So even now, 2.5 mil, that's pretty good. So that's been the primary content. I've been just kind of working on the Slayer in my side time.
Right, we're both taking on Slayer, trying to stock up those points for Slayer.
Yeah, as many points as I can get. That way, when the update comes out, my plan is basically just cancel everything I can that is not Hellhounds or Abbey Demons.
Yep.
And like hopefully I'll have enough by then where the first like week will be nothing but new Slayer content for the stream. Which
So are you doing what I'm doing? I tried Duradel and was like, yeah, Dark Beast really worth it. I haven't made that decision yet, but what master are you using? Just so
I use Duradel, but I
you've
haven't done Morning End, so I don't get Dark Beast. But I'm so anti-Slayer right now because of the task selection. I keep getting things like gargoyles and
Right.
other things that I just don't want to do. Spiritual Rangers. I don't have enough cancels to cancel out all the things I want, so I'm not really building points as much as I want. So I gotta figure out exactly how.
Well, that's why I like. Well, I don't even remember her name at this point. Neve. I like her only because at this point, Duradel has this like his task list is actually dumb because he has almost everything that's in the Relica Slayer to cave, for whatever reason, and some more bullshit on top of that. Whereas Neve is like actually doesn't have that stuff. So the nice thing is, not that it matters for us now, but coming in the future when they rework the tables, he should get rid of all that like basilisk crap, cave crawlers. That should all disappear. So that's nice. On the other hand, it's not happening until the update itself. So at least once we get the update, there's theories that it could be spread out a little bit, but I don't know how true Jagex is going to stay to that. Like, hey, we're gonna stick. We're gonna release everything at once, like the achievement diaries, which, as we all know, went very well. Or if they're gonna slowly give us content from that Slayer poll bit by bit. So it's kind of up in the air at this point. I'm not 100% on that one.
Yeah, as far as the whole condensing all the tasks, I think it'll be nice, but they also talk about giving everything one static rate. So, like, you have the same chance of getting Abbey Demons as you have for getting Blood Bells, as you have for getting Gargoyles, which is cool because, for me, like, I get Abbey Demons way too often, and I don't get Krakens. So the chance of getting a Kraken will increase, whereas the chance of getting Abbey Demon will lower, but that's also bad because Abbey Demons is one of the things with the new boss, which is one of the reasons I like it, but...
I will burst your bubble on that a little bit because, and this is again, this speaks volumes to like Jagex's communication with the community, and I could talk all day about like their communication with Twitter and how seriously they take it, but according to John C., that is not going to happen. So
did he post the straw poll? Is that what happened on Twitter?
He might as well have.
It went like 80 and 30, so he's like, they don't want it. The community doesn't want
it. and shout outs really quickly to Mod Ghost, who has been designing the music cape recently. All of his straw polls on Twitter, I was like, why are we doing this through Twitter again? Like, why are we making the same mistake? Thank God he understands like what we want at least, or knows what he's doing, and he's like, these polls are specifically for me to gauge approval of certain designs, not necessarily which one is actually going to be in the game. And turns out his very last poll, after narrowing it down to two options, he's going, I believe, the opposite of the majority, just to keep it true to the game, not what necessarily people want. So good for him. Much applause to Ghost, because that's huge. But yeah, so back to, I guess, Slayer. That was a giant tangent. The bad thing, if tasks were to get leveled out, one of the things I read that a lot of people were, I think some Slayer clan guy wrote up a post, but what it mostly talked about was if you make all the tasks on a level footing, no longer are you blocking tasks that you get often and dislike, you're blocking tasks that you most dislike. So right now, my block list consists of gargoyles, blue dragons, spiritual warriors, rangers. There's a whole little clump of them, but they're all based off of what is assigned relatively commonly, but what I don't like and what is bad XP per hour. If they made that change, theoretically, most of those would switch out because you don't get that as commonly. It will now be the same level, and you're going to ban the things that you want. Literally you want least instead of the things that happen the most. So that meta change didn't make people so happy, especially if you had a lot of blocks. If you had the 5 blocks, obviously, theoretically, you could be reusing all 5 blocks, which is a big pain in the ass. So thankfully, I don't think they're going to change that, but you never know with a tweet, which I guess is the problem. All right, so you and your bullshit luck. Let me go back to that, Edzora. You have all your kills, right? But in those 3,400 you said, right?
Yeah, roughly.
You've managed a mutagen. You've managed a pet. You've managed the Jar of Swamp. Those are your big 3. I have a Jar of Swamp. Granted, I don't have nearly as many kills as you do, but you were doing much better than I was, certainly up to like 1,600 kills, which is what I think I have. So I'm just kind of butthurt, especially since I mentioned to you the other day, 5 people that week came to me and got fresh Zulrah pets, including one of my friends who literally walked into the Zulrah cave with no prior knowledge and just was like, I'm going to try this. And 1 kill later, like he's a master at it. He's like, this is easy. I don't get what you're complaining about. So it's very interesting. We could talk all day about the learning curve. We talked about this before once, how some people, it's best to watch a guide and they get that. Some people just have to launch themselves in like you did. For me, it took watching Wooks for a couple hours on the day of release. And that all just speaks to, I guess, people's learning curves. But it's interesting how he just literally walked in the cave and he figured it out, which I was kind of mad about, especially since he got a pet at like kill 260. But there you go.
Yeah, while I was doing it, probably in the first week or so, pretty much the exact same thing was happening, where everyone that I was streaming to was like, I'm going to try it now. And everyone else, except for me, was getting pets within fucking 10 minutes, probably. They're like, oh, I just got my pet on the 43rd kill. Got my pet on the 72nd kill. And I'm at like 1,500 at the time. And was just like, okay, got my jar of swamp. This is, but I like that because now when I do Zulrah, because I've gotten everything except for the Tanzanite mutagen, it's just about money. Like there's no hype behind what I'm gonna get, especially because I don't want the Tanzanite mutagen. So now it's just like I'll do it when I need scales or money. So it's, in your case, I'm envious because you still have a lot to look forward to.
That's true.
Whereas I am just sitting here making money for whatever I need at this point.
Well, I guess that's the nice thing about me doing Corp, and the nice thing about those pieces of content in general, because you just you're not going to finish everything, if ever. I mean, chances are you'll be there for, even with Zulrah, you could say that about Zulrah. Certainly Corp, though, with those massive rarity drops,
Especially the pet. What is the pet
1 in
from Corp?
5K.
And that's if you get the drop. Like that's...
Right. And just to put, to put Corp's drops in perspective, the FFACC, Corp FFA07, shout out, that I use and is, I guess, the only running one. I don't know if it has connections to the old clan that used to run back in pre-EOC times, but they have 35 Ellies, 89 Arcanes, 93 Spectrals, and 25 Pets. And that's theoretically since release. That's not a lot of stuff when you really think about it.
How many people are running it on a daily basis, I wonder?
It is 24/7, so there are almost certainly always people inside killing Corp, especially during the summer. I'd say anywhere usually from like 10 to 30 people in the room at a time. Kills are usually like a minute to 2 minutes between, I guess I should say. Either way, they've killed a lot of Corps, and it's a testament to the drop table when you can look and say only 25 people have gotten pets from Corp FFA. And that's a low number. There are people who have 25 Bandos chest plates themselves, just to put it in perspective. So it's crazy.
I actually know someone that came in the other night. Do you know Miss Rice Bunny?
I don't.
Okay, it's one of the viewers on Twitch. Got her Corp pet on 69 kills. 69 kill count. Tweeted me a picture of the Corp pet, and I was just sitting there like, are you kidding me?
Well, see, it's funny because when I'm at FFA, I am totally willing. Like, if someone wants to get a pet there, cool. But if one of my scum friends, when we're like 4 or 5 manning, gets a pet, I will be furious. I'll be like, you son of a bitch, this was our kill, and you just had to get a pet that kill, didn't you? You couldn't. No, not an Ellie. Ellie, 1 in 4,000, like 75. You had
on
to
the
go,
bright side,
you had to go all the way.
Because of the way it works with it being unique on the table to its own slot, I like to look at it like, sweet, they got it,
right.
But if I had gotten that kill, it would not have happened that way. It's just RNG works. Like they didn't snipe it. They just got really lucky.
Yeah, and like there's nobody who is more about that, like truly holding people to here's how the tables work, and people especially, nothing makes me more salty. It's like crazy pet peeve of I killed Zulrah. I got a rune 2H. That's crazy. No, it's not. Shut up. It's a common drop, but it's just kind of.
I did get 2 D spears, if that counts
See,
for
like,
anything.
it's
Like,
cool. Like, it's interesting. And, like, there is no one, like, I'll get, like a D left half at Abbey Demons when I was doing my Demon Days series. And I'm like, that's sweet. That's so rare. Like, this is something that doesn't happen, like, ever.
but it
There's
affects
people
nothing
who
else.
will be like, oh my god, that's like 60 billion times rarer than a whip. That sucks. Like, no, it doesn't because of the way things work here. So, that's definitely a pet peeve of mine. Anyway, okay, D&D. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk
Yeah,
about
I mean, there's
D&D.
It has been. I've talked more about D&D than I think anything else since Tuesday. It was probably my favorite D&D session out of the 17 weeks we've been doing it.
Well, I appreciate my suffering was pleasant for you.
There were so many things that just went wrong or didn't happen in such a short time frame that just caused one of the biggest meltdowns I've ever seen in a session in any campaign ever. But if you didn't see D&D but you follow it, basically what happened is myself and Pearl Baggins stayed on the beach to wait for a messenger that we're going to be using to trade the Batman. I still don't know what we call him now.
I think his name
Tywin?
is Tywin.
Tywin, okay.
I don't know where that came from. I think it's
the guy that we
yeah.
basically have found on the island. And while we're there, the rest of the party goes off to get the spores from the myconids. Should have been that simple. Like, the lake is drained. We go to talk to the myconids. It was that simple. And it completely broke down. Things, I forget exactly how it all happened, but the myconids started to try and run away.
We're
because
basically
the thing
we're
was
in this
filling with
we're
water.
in this cave, right? Yeah, and the cave, like, for whatever reason, I guess Joey had it set up so that the cave, like, the guys we were supposed to be waiting for on the beach never showed up. So Joey was forcing us back into the cave with the myconids. Unbeknownst to us, the rivers are like melting and things. So we're like, that's weird. Everything's kind of like slowly coming back. While we're in the cave, the water source opens up and the cave starts flooding. So everybody starts booking it out. And poor Mr. Ben made a silly decision. And while these dudes are booking it, I'm just like, let's follow them. Let's see. We haven't been able to go down this passage. They prevented us from going down the passage before. Let's follow them. So I start following. Ben, on the other hand, just runs up to one of them and tries to slice off what we need, like a piece of its shoulder. And the look on Joey's face, DM Joey, when like he does this, Joey's like, oh you did that, oh boy. Like, I was like, oh no.
You have fucked up.
Oh god. And then the second he put them in like the turn order and it said Myconid Sovereign, I was like, all right, ain't nothing easy to kill that's named Sovereign. We're fucked. And you can tell the rest.
If you can't tell the rest, though, basically myconids are not weak. They are strong things. There were like 7 of them. The fight goes on. Omen gets knocked down. He's doing death saving throws. He's down 2 fails to 1 success. Ends up pulling it back. Becomes stable unconscious. Not to mention, during all this, Andrew and Marissa have ran away. Andrew did not grab the spores.
Well, the worst part is,
he
like,
completely left them.
I'm sorry.
He could have grabbed them and ran, and we'd be good. But he left them. Not to mention, Andrew also could have saved Ben from the death saving throws, but he wasn't aware, which we have now fixed that issue. But he could have just healed him, and he stood up, and we'd have been good. But at the very end of it all, basically, Smork and Omen Blackbark are stable but unconscious, laying on their backs, water rising over their heads, and this picture right here sums up pretty much everything that went down on D&D.
And for those of you on YouTube and on SoundCloud, that will be linked below. It is the epitome of that situation altogether. Just the grim outlook.
Yeah.
And
unfortunate.
Dude, I'm tortured
ending.
because like now that I've learned like what I could have done, I'm like really upset. And I walked through it all. I was like, when I picked him up and was trying to carry him out of the cave, knowing my strength was so low, I knew it wasn't going to go well. But when Joey moved my character as much as he let me when I had him, I was like, for whatever reason, my brain registered as that is my move distance at this moment. So I was panicked. Then the spider failed, and I was like, okay, even the spider couldn't do it. So I go in and I reach in his bag, thinking spores, but then thinking, well, he's holding them. Maybe that's fine. Like, freaking Smork has maybe caught some, like, I don't know what's going on. So I grab the cards,
The deck of
the
cards.
like illusion cards, and think, okay, I'll throw one. Maybe that will help. But then I like, by the time I can throw one, I'm like, but I'll lose the card, and then like maybe it won't work on water. Is that worth it? It seems like we're about to get out of here. And then Ben does his whole good berry stunt, and he's like stuck there again. Like, watching it over, there was so much that we could have done, and especially like not even like we could have done things like that crit. That freaking Smork, Haz's character was tanking like a beast. Like he wasn't taking any damage, and then suddenly one rolls a 20, one of the Myconids, and just absolutely it just KOs him, and it's like, oh, well, fuck.
And not to mention, at some point, I don't remember the specific instance, but the way the webs were working were, Omen should have been fucked up much sooner, but the
Right.
webs were actually holding the Myconids in place, and they just kept failing the saving throw.
Yeah,
So
it's like
it
they
went
can't
on
get out
so
of
much
it.
longer. Like, he was so lucky. Like, it wasn't even that hard of a throw to break out, but they held forever, and everything that could have went our way did until the very end.
Pretty
but
much.
meanwhile, me and Pearl have no idea what's going on. Sitting on
the beach,
drinking
chilling out.
margaritas. We're smoking the peace pipe with Kogan Wise Fighter, and no one knows that they are now unconscious, about to drown.
I think the worst part of this for me now is that like I am tasked with, I'm outside with Marissa and have to desperately get into character and figure out what the fuck I'm gonna do.
This is one of the hardest things about D&D,
Yeah.
is not metagaming, and we do it so much, and it bothers me sometimes when we do, but in a point this crucial, like, there's a balance between, do you metagame
Right.
or do you not?
Well, I'll tell you like my thought process. Like, I've run out of the cave assuming that I'm escaping, right? And so my character's chaotic good. So as long as I'm achieving the end, like, you know, the greater good through whatever means, I'm good. But I haven't like fixed anything. Like, nothing I've done up to that point has been for the cause. It's honestly like, unfortunately, my actions ended up being very selfish and like self-preserving. So theoretically, I feel like my character should have some sort of like regret and immediately want to like go back inside. But I don't. At this point, I'm kind of psyched out in a way of like, but if I go back inside, am I metagaming because I know that they're unconscious? Like, am I truly making this decision as my character, or am I making, you know, it's all that. And god damn it, Joey, I have a week to think about it. Like, it's torture. And I'm the noob who is like now tasked with saving 16 weeks of character, you know, possibly. Which
I think if it were me in this situation, as much as I wouldn't want to outside of game, I think that running in fear, like, if anything, you might wait a few minutes before you would go back in. But at this point, with the water rising as fast as it was initially rising, because that little pit that they were in originally has filled up and it's now flooded over to the second tier. Like, that happened within a couple minutes.
Yeah.
At this point, they're drowned. Like, I can't feasibly see a way that they live without metagaming this.
The one thing that I think I just need to talk to Joey about, like, what is involved, because my dexterity is so high. If getting in there and like making something happen involves dexterity, I'd feel better about it. But
You can, like, run up the wall and kind of kick
I
off
don't know,
and,
you know.
and grab them as you jump from wall to wall, Spider-Man.
yeah, but like strength is just such an issue for my character that like even if I grabbed, theoretically, like storyline wise, you'd think Joey would, if he's going to be nice to somebody and like potentially save them, it's going to be Smork, because Ben is the one who got himself and us in that shit.
I told Joey, this is something that you were there for, but I told Joey, like, outside of game, in meta, like, I would be okay with Smork surviving this.
Right.
Because A, Smork is great for the campaign. B,
So good.
He enjoys playing him. C, he didn't fucking do this.
He
This
didn't.
was all on Ben. And
Oh man.
and as much as I don't like metagaming, especially big key things like this, I personally would not be upset if Smork survived it in
Right.
some magic feat of you know, whatever you want to call it. That here
Right.
somehow some way he ends up pulling through this. But unfortunately, Smork wears plate armor, so he can't just float out of the fucking cave. He's going to sit right there on the ground, and the water's just going to rise.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot going for us in this situation. Now, besides that, throughout the rest of the campaign, that session was really fun in a lot of ways, too. The cards were brought up. That's, I think, the first time that I've been involved with we just do nothing, and we want to do nothing. And that was a lot of fun, especially getting into the role-playing of it, and my character attempting to, like, kind of rig that little arrow game of chance thing.
Cocksucker.
Which I really enjoyed, personally.
I still don't understand why you hate me.
I saw,
you haven't told me anything.
That is actually really funny that you still don't know that, and I'm surprised that, like, because everybody else knows, I think. Yeah. Smork might not, but for sure Pearl and Omen do, and Marissa does. Well, so, like, I'm not sure why that hasn't been shared.
The people that were originally on the island have no idea, because you told them in
Kogan just actually I told Kogan. I'm pretty sure. You actually might know then.
I don't remember. Well, yeah. Okay, so I do know, because you told Kogan that it was the Dragon Clan.
Right, it was like a green dragon came through.
And I was just like, have you ever heard of my clan? Like, it wasn't fucking us. Like, we're good dragons, you know? So, like, but that didn't matter to you.
Right,
like,
right.
You're stubborn.
That was also the first session that I've like I wasn't there for your first episode. Like, I had watched as much as I could up until that, like, you know, when I joined. Obviously now I'm like fully involved. But that's the first time I had seen you with your backstory happening in the game, and it kind of made me think that maybe I should be more concerned with my backstory. I'm trying my best, like, without giving you too much information because it would spoil things, but my dagger is important to me for certain reasons, and when you guys were talking about, like, using a dagger for, like, a piece of steel or something, I chimed in and kind of said, don't touch my dagger, like, just instinctively, even though no one asked. Like, I was just, you know, trying to slip into that at least a little bit.
Well, now I know.
But yeah, that was, so yeah, I feel like I should be more actively, like, since I am, like, I kind of feel like I slipped too quickly into the routine of your guys' thing, and I'm not concerned enough with my own well-being. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but at this point, like, it's hard to join a campaign and not just, like, kind of go with the flow. Because at this point, you're just, like, floating. Like, we don't know why you're following us, but you've decided to, and it really has no relevance to our campaign. But that's kind of how Marissa is as well. Marissa, I don't know if you know the exact backstory, but Marissa basically was trying to hurt us, and we convinced her to let us use her little camp as a rest stop. And during that, we found out that she just ran away from her town, kind of a spoiled upbringing,
like,
stuff,
like,
but she doesn't want to live.
Thing,
she doesn't want to live like the spoiled, just sit around and be wealthy life. She wants to adventure, so she's now traveling with us at this point. But no real direction. She just floats. Does whatever we do. So.
Well, there you go. That, I mean, to be fair, I've only had 2 sessions, but that one was, I think, like, overall, like, really balanced in everything we did. There was a lot of that, you know, kind of decision making, but also good action, and, you know, that nice lull was fun for sure. So
we've done things like that before, like our inner
well, you two slipped into gambling so quickly, like, it had to have been. I was just kind of like, all right.
Whenever we have a lull where we're waiting for something, we tend to go with gambling. Like, that's, you know, it's the money stays within the group, but it gives us a little bit of relief.
Yeah,
from
no, it was. I enjoyed it.
We did horse races one time, I think.
We can't not specifically talk about the cards, at least a little bit. Those cards they're interesting, and a bunch of people I've talked to know exactly what they are. Apparently, we still don't know the full story.
Well, here's the thing: no one knows except for Joey what exactly they are, because because there's something similar on the internet. Joey has twisted, and from what I've understood, someone's already kind of ruined it for me, but they told me that they are one-time use things, but Joey has changed that mechanic. They are not one-time use things, so they really could have a complete twist. Like,
there's a lot.
A combination of things they could do something. Like, we don't know any of this yet.
The options there are crazy.
Endless.
I mean, and the mechanics still. I mean, those mechanics still aren't understood yet too, because you know how theoretically you could take 2 cards out and shuffle them, and that would be random. Like, that's the one thing we did figure out. Like, randomness is important, or a natural progression.
So
At
we
first
could
we
pull
thought it
out
was like
all
winning,
the troll cards, separate them,
right? Like theoretically, if
one,
you needed
and
a
that could
type,
do something with trolls. Like there's a lot of potential with the
Yes.
cards.
So that's exciting, which is why I may have taken
I
them.
am glad you grabbed them, but you could have grabbed the spores as well. You have
Look,
two hands.
they both died, okay? They're both it's a lot of I could have done so much more, and a lot of it was like thinking what I could do, and Joey again, it was like perfect storm of like me fucking up the usual. I couldn't even find, like, I have a button for cure wounds, and I'm like with Joey, like, I don't know where it is, and he's like, just roll. Joey was getting fed up with my bullshit, so I'm like, I'm sorry. So I was like, you know what, let me just take care of things. It was a perfect storm of panic. So there you go. All right. Moving onwards, we're going to talk some current events. I think the first thing we're going to touch on is something that kind of ties in fully here. Going all the way back to the Rat Pits dupe, which, if you are not familiar, there was a duping glitch involving Rat Pits. Rat Pits has a gambling-esque kind of thing to it, where you fight your cat against another cat or a rat. I don't even really know the full mechanics of it. Regardless, people were duplicating money. And quite a bit of money, and I believe had bots doing it. And these are people who are like relatively well known, I think, amongst the bug abuse community. And that's not the website, but just the general, like, people who know how this game works, and guys who know how to no clip if they can, and when updates happen, they're sure to check on. I'm sure these guys who are dedicated to it go through a checklist of things to see if anything is working again, and they can with new content can go through stuff and check. So tons and tons of GP was brought in. We're talking billions. And believe it or not, it's all connected to Twitch Plays 07, which is if you're familiar with Twitch Plays Pokemon, is basically the chat controls things. So it's a RuneScape account that chat controls. It's had a lot of run-ins with Jagex on whether it's legitimate. It's definitely not one of those things, at least if you ask me, and this is supposed to be news, but in my opinion, the way they do it, if you go in there and start trolling the account, you're gonna get banned, because it's, and that's not natural. You're supposed to be able to do whatever you want. And part of that has to do with there's not enough people in the chat. Format is an issue, but for now it's really like there's 4 or 5 people in the chat doing whatever they want. And most of it is positive, right? So it's not a true natural experience. But either way, people connected with Twitch Plays 07 were apparently part of that duping, and so Twitch Plays 07 once again has been banned
for the 12th time this year.
And seriously, yeah, it's like all the time, because sometimes it's like this account is macroing, and there was a big issue with, are there enough people involved? I mean, there's a whole bunch of nonsense that keeps getting brought up with that account. So it's interesting to say the least. Keef, what are your duping? What are your thoughts, man?
Let's be real here, though. Like, Twitch Plays I loved it. I really did. The first Twitch Plays for Pokemon, a game that I fucking loved as a kid, I watched it all day when I wasn't doing my own thing. And the concept of it was unique, because it was the first time chat had free reign, no matter if it was what the majority wanted at first. If someone said to do it, it did it. And there were repercussions for people trolling, and it's the internet. People will troll. Twitch Plays 07 has cut out all of the Twitch Plays part, and it's now Mod Plays 07.
Right.
And I've gone in there and watched, and especially at night now, to the point where there's one person. And have you ever actually watched someone control it that knows what they're doing with Twitch Plays 07?
It's a little scary.
It's scripted
to
where it looks like they're just running a script. Mm-hmm. Almost like what you would be doing if you were running a bot program, to where it's like, it's just every 3 seconds it tells it go here, click here. Like it's exact. Yeah, it's not even a human controlling it at this point anymore. It's just a bot program typing inputs into the Twitch chat, and if you go against what that bot program wants, they ban you.
Yeah, you're just banned.
Which, if Twitch and RuneScape are cool with, what the fuck ever. But and I talked to you earlier about this too. I've gotten messages from accounts, and I can't confirm this, but this is what I've heard, is that Quint, which is the original owner, I guess, of the site, basically has made Twitch accounts, typically with female-esque names, that go around and message streamers and other players saying Twitch Plays 07 needs money. They can't afford to keep on it. Consider giving Quint money to keep 07 or Twitch Plays 07 alive. And I'm thinking, first off, I don't care enough about it personally, but why would I pay money towards a thing that isn't even Twitch Plays anymore?
Right.
Like, even if I did like the concept of Twitch Plays 07, they don't run it right. It's terribly managed.
Yeah.
It's not Twitch Plays. It's a fucking joke at this point.
Yeah, well, to be fair, like, I can totally understand reaching out. That's cool. But why, if it is true that it's not actually, people connected to him and it's actually him on these strange, like, alternate accounts, that's, like, really fishy. And why not just ask?
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, I think we've seen right here with the whole it being banned that it's definitely connected with people that are not doing things in the community.
Right.
That would...
Well, yeah, clearly if the account gets banned because someone who was involved with duping, I mean, that's totally a thing. Now, the one upside of the duping was that gold prices and gold farmers suffered a little bit because billions and billions of gold just kind of flooded into the system. Gold farmers, GP went down. Let's put it that way.
Do you think they actually suffered, or do the people that buy the GP just had to pay more at this point? Like, do you think that they lost a lot of business, or they made more because people had to buy more GP?
Or, I don't know. From what I understand is the people who sell gold, if you're a person who sells gold, you're selling to probably a website, unless you're selling to your friend. And the website marks you down incredibly. That's how there's sites that are farming and selling, and there's sites that are just selling and buying, kind of merchanting the gold on its own. So the thing that the Reddit thread that was like an Ask Me Anything mentioned was that like gold was down to like $1 when you're selling. That doesn't mean much to me. I know of the buy value, so I don't really know. But apparently the buy value would go down too. So I don't know. It depends on the site. It depends on the gold farmers. There's a lot more to it that I don't really know about, and that's not just me like trying to save ass. Like
I know that
I don't
directly due to the dupe. From what I've talked to a couple of different swappers, is that swap prices have ultimately gone down quite a bit as well. Kind of on both accords, because gold just loses value when you have an influx of billions of gold thrown in all at once. It's just not worth much, and it was pretty good timing for myself because of RuneFest. So swapping all this money over ended up netting me so much less. Right. So it ended up not just hurting the game itself.
Right.
In a general sense, but it also affected so many other things than just 07 as well.
And obviously, in the grand scheme of things, this is kind of our transition here, is that what do we do in Jagex if there are so many of these bugs? Again, the other more recent one was the corp glitch, the invincibility glitch. I forget the actual term for it. There's some sort of like non-targetable fancy gaming term, but some guys figured out that using the Gmall spec made you untargetable by the corp. You could sit in the room on an account and just stabby stab until he was dead, rinse and repeat. And this guy basically ended up, and a couple friends as far as I'm aware, setting up tons and tons of accounts, just killing corp solo all day, all night, 24/7, and just farming sigils. And the dude was getting, 2 to 3 sigils every day, sometimes even more. Across the month or two that he was doing it, he said he brought in like 30 Ellie's to the game, something ridiculous. Which that number, like, I don't know how much I buy into that number. Again, judging with the Corp FFA having only had 35 Ellie's since they've been going, so I don't know how true any of that is, but
depending on how many bots he ran, I did watch the video. I forget the specific numbers, but like when you boil it down, every single one of those sigils should not have been in the game.
Right.
Anytime something is brought in that shouldn't be, there's a negative impact, whether it's 1 or 100 or billions of GP. Like, the game isn't big enough at this point, and the community isn't large enough to have this big of an influx of a specific 800 mil item just flood the market. Like, it's very bad.
And but it's interesting though, because Ellie prices upon people hearing about it, a little down. But as a whole, sigil prices and shield prices didn't actually go anywhere.
Well, I mean,
they came right back up.
Keep in mind, you just said it's billions of GP entered as well.
Right.
So
I mean, it's weird.
That money disperses eventually, and now there's many more bills to pay for these many more shields.
Right. I mean, it is weird, and it's, I guess, the only thing that's like, I mean, it's not the only similar thing that's happened in RS3, I guess, that we know about would be the Archer Ring thing, and that's like in the reverse. That was someone gets hacked. Jagex is testing out their new like we'll restore your items thing, and they give this guy thousands upon thousands of Archer Rings. We're talking millions of Archer Rings, and so he just like not knowing what the fuck to do, does report it, but also is like selling them off at the same time. And as much as Jagex could do, Archer Rings are still
30K.
Yeah, I think it's something ridiculous. But on a whole, like stuff like that can't happen on a regular basis, and it's obvious. And this will tie into a question later on. But how long are we gonna go that old school is gonna be bottom bitch, and RS3 has this team of hundreds, and granted they need that, but old school has almost the same player base. It's probably bringing in as much money from membership, if not, a little less. Again, microtransactions at this point are, now with bonds out, I mean, that's certainly, the gap is narrowed, but RS3 is not doing as well as it could be. If you want to just talk on a whole, like, a budget basis, old school's probably doing better. Just, how much we're
absolutely.
investing. I mean, that's pretty clear.
Like the building that they host
right.
for old school is probably, a small little cubicle section, and then you've got this whole floor dedicated, I would assume, to RS3 people that they have to pay and
right.
and all the benefits, and it's not just a straight pay, but there's more that goes into it, and with them making maybe slightly more due to RWT, legal RWT microtransactions, they have to know something we don't to allow this to continue as long as it has. They either have a big plan or they just don't care.
Yeah, like, it's interesting.
I don't know where old school is going to be relative to RS3 in a year or two, but
right.
They have to know something we don't at this point, because I think it's just gone on for so long. Like, how could they allow this to continue?
I mean, well, since we're here, we might as well. From this is one of our Twitter questions from Dominic. How long do you think old school will be alive / sustainable? And it's a good question, because a lot of people talk about, number one, you got to have players. We're doing okay there. It's certainly not 2007, but it's a sustainable game in terms of money. The problem is you've got this, and this is what everyone usually ends up talking about, is who really is pulling the strings at Jagex. If it's shareholders, it's we pump money in, we pump money out. When we see that it's not working, we're out and you're dead kind of thing. And the back history on the investors we have right now is not super great. So that's I don't know more than that, but it's certainly something to think about. Nothing can last forever, but certainly the games that shouldn't be able to last this long, the MMOs, somehow are. The fact that World of Warcraft is still going and the fact that RuneScape is still going kind of blows my mind. But I don't know how you feel about that, but at this point I feel like we're on a ticking time clock.
Yeah, this question was asked probably 7 years ago.
Right.
How long until RuneScape dies? And yet here we are still talking about the same question that's been asked every day for years. So there's no good answer, because we have no idea. Like you said, a lot of it has to do with the top guys, the guys that we never hear from. They don't post on Twitter. We don't see them on Reddit. Those guys control when RuneScape dies. It's not the player base. It's not what we perceive as money going in and out with memberships and microtransactions. When they say it's over, because without their funding, Jagex will not be able to upkeep this. Like, they only upkeep it because of the investors. Yep. And I like to think that RuneScape will be something that will continue to thrive, and I throw that term out loosely because comparing it to where it was in 2007, the game is not thriving, but it is still around. It's still fun to play, and it has opened the door for many people like myself to have an easier life and a nicer, more relaxed style of living, to do something they enjoy.
Holy shit. I mean, you want to talk about the impact level. I mean, certainly Twitch has been a thing for a while, and RuneScape has been involved in Twitch, but Twitch didn't really, on a RuneScape level, didn't take off until 07 came off. Now we've got, I mean, certainly folks like me who are trying their best to do full-time kind of on this like lifeline situation, but there's definitely a lot of folks, you included, who are full-time RuneScape streamers, and theoretically, if RuneScape disappears, you're not in a great situation.
No, yeah.
And that's been I mean, for me, rising up, plan B and, something to move forward to has always been work other games into your schedule, become a multi-game streamer. Even if RuneScape does go on forever, there's no telling that you'll still enjoy it. So it's one of those things that it's a lot more serious now. Not that Jagex cares, or who's pulling the strings cares, but it's certainly something that when you look at Bodhi, Emily, Paul, anyone who's Raj, anyone who's full time, I don't know their specific situations. They certainly could be, probably, but I mean they're impacted significantly on what happens to this game. So it's definitely more than just a game now to a lot of people.
When I made the transition over probably 10 or 11 months ago, like it seemed spur of the moment, but there was a lot of back planning and thought that went into it, and eventually there was a line. I was on a ledge where if I'm gonna do it, I have to decide to do it, and I can't keep saying, well, I could, but this, like, there's always those buts, in anything in life, not just with becoming a full-time streamer. You can always find a million reasons not to do something, but you can find one good reason to try. And the big thing about me specifically was I told myself that you mentioned multi-gaming in case something happens. Like, I'm not like that. I don't want to swap over to Path of Exile if something happens with this. I'll go back to what I did.
Right.
I'll go back to working. I've worked just about every day of my life with small breaks in between since I was 15 years old. And I'm not, it's not that I've never done it, but I don't want to force this to be something I do because it's money.
Right.
I'll do it until it's either not fun or I can't sustain it anymore. Right. And I have other plans, and I've actually come up with some ideas because maybe I don't want to go back to working in the sheet metal shops, Like I've try to find other things that I actually enjoy, and I'm planning on putting some money aside, taking some classes in culinary next spring, and if it's all for nothing, it's all for nothing, but at some point that money went towards something that may have helped me out later in life.
And certainly in this in this era, I guess, a successful Twitch stream is not nothing. I don't think, for you and me, I don't think we know what that means, but for me, certainly, and this we're kind of getting into a question that someone wanted to have answered, but it wasn't planned. But here you are, whoever you are. I'll figure it out in a second. But certainly for me, I've kind of renewed my interest in radio a little bit, and just being somewhere where production is happening. So it's definitely not something you can necessarily it's not something a lot of people will understand. I tell the story very often. Right after I dropped out of school, I went and talked to a guy who runs a video production company and talked to him about editing a little bit. And one of the things he said to me, basically my portfolio at the time was, I want to learn more about this. I have a YouTube channel that garnered some success. It was all RuneScape videos for the most part. And I showed him several. He asked for anything. And one of the first things he told me, which immediately told me this is not where I want to be right now, is don't show this to anyone. And I was like, okay. Right. I understand why you would say that, but did you have to? Really? So from that point onward, that guy has been motivation number one. I also talked to him about why YouTube and these kind of things are sustainable. This was before I even knew about Twitch, so mostly my thought process was on YouTube. But he answered answered one of my responses to him with if YouTube is such great money, why are people telling you that it is? And I was like, this selfish motherfucker thinks that everything's this close guarded secret. So that dude is a huge waste of my time, and it's certainly something that keeps me motivated day in and day out to just prove him wrong.
And you mentioned that it was before Twitch. Things have changed.
Oh yeah.
I
mean, let's be real.
Let's be real here. 3 years ago, before I started doing Twitch, I had no thought in my mind that I could ever play a video game and it pay my bills, and I wake up and not dread that fucking 9 to 5 that I had to just go sit in. And although the job itself might have been enjoyable, just that whole having to report to somebody, and if you're not feeling well, you have to explain that you're sick and then feel bad because you're not going to be able there to flip papers all day. This is new. This is not. It seems so lax to us now that we just hop on. Twitch is always there. We're so accustomed to it, but it's not where it was in 3 years ago, and it's not even just for a streamer side, but the things that Twitch has done.
Yep.
The money that it has raised for organizations, and just specific people, things like charity streams for specific people that may not go to a big foundation about cancer or something, but it has changed just in the RuneScape community thousands of people's lives, and who knows where that's going to be in 3 more years. Like, this is the ground level of something still that has the potential to just build up into this massive, just worldwide thing. It really does.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Deadman Mode. Very exciting. You specifically, I kind of let Deadman Mode... Flawless segue, by the way. I kind of let Deadman Mode slip by me a little bit. I kind of was like, okay, Deadman Mode, that's interesting. You, however, picked up a very similar, I guess, picket sign, for lack of a better word, that I have in the past about Bounty Hunter and PvP worlds, in that, and I'll let you elaborate, the kind of spreading the PvP community out and why that's bad for the game. So
there's so I could talk about this for the entire podcast. I really could, because there's so much about it. But Deadman Mode, to me, it's interesting. I like the concept. I think it would be fun to do. I think it'd be fun to watch. I think that there's a view base out there for it, and I think that's how it's passed. I actually meant to make a tinfoil hat I was going to wear for this segment. I swear, I was going to wear one, and I completely forgot. But I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat here for a moment and say one thing. Like, I fully believe this. I'm not trying to be funny. It's not for any comedy purposes at all. But I fully believe that at any time, if Jagex puts out the notion of an update and polls it for something that will make them money, and that their investors think is a good idea, and tell them that they support, they will pass it whether or not the players want it. They have that ability. I don't think I've seen anything like that happen yet, but this is the first time I fully could question an update passing, although we don't actually want it as a whole.
Well, it's very, it's not that crazy, because I do a series, you may not be aware, on my YouTube channel every once in a while. It's called Poll Rundown. We look at the poll, I tell you my opinion, I try to give you information about the polls, because, again, the polling system, there's so much to it that's not working the way it should. Information is not clear. People who aren't involved enough, blah, blah, blah. When we went through the repolling process, Jagex handpicked which things we wanted to repoll, which things they wanted to repoll, things they knew would probably pass. The GE is one of them. Especially polarizing things like that. They made that decision for them. There were a million things that were at 74%. They chose which ones. So, as much as, some people might go, well, the polling system's true. Well, Jagex always will find a way to get something back if they want to. And we saw that with the GE. The GE came back twice, I think. Like, first time, we said no. Then we voted on if we wanted the trading post. GE lost again. Finally, Jagex trying so hard to get a GE in this game. We're going to repoll some stuff. Here's the GE. Apparently the trading post is not what people want. Well, guess what? The trading post was never going to be what people wanted, because you made it shitty. So
yeah, it was awful. Like, it was Zybez in the game,
and
but
it was dysfunctional. It wasn't
90% of the time
like,
they weren't even on. Like, it was a disaster, and there was so much talk about when the trading post came out. Was it so bad to make the GE seem so good?
Right.
Like, again, tinfoil hat. It's possible. Like, it's very. I would not put it past them, because they're not as transparent as they like to make us think they are. They post on your Twitters when you tweet at them. They comment on your Reddit posts, only on the ones that are supporting them. By the way, they never, unless it's something really negative, they'll tell you why you're wrong.
Right.
They've never once really posted on something that was damaging to them and been like, we fucked up. Like, they don't admit it. They never will. If they do, they have a reason why they fucked up, but it wasn't really our fault.
Right.
Like,
and it's interesting you say that. When the Paladin glitch was happening, the Paladin bug, I took advantage. I've been fully, very clear about that. I trained thieving with Paladins. There's a reason I have 90 thieving. And that's a whole nother story. We're running out of time here really quickly, so I'm going to just be quick about it. I made a post that morning. I was up for 14 hours. Really quickly, post was titled the post basically was titled 2 things: Jagex, stop hiding, and number 2, RuneScape players, stop fighting. It was a really simple message, And Ronan ended up commenting on it and kind of being more transparent in that moment. I was basically asking for transparency. But the other crazy thing about it was the main message in the video was RuneScapers stop treating each other like shit. I have never had a comment section worse than that video.
Fuck you, I'll talk shit if I want.
It's honestly incredible because it wasn't like these comments were self-aware. It's like they didn't even think before they said something. You'd think a video reaching out for people to treat each other better would garner some sort of, oh yeah, like maybe, I don't know how you can be wrong about that. Like, in what circumstance is it better to treat each other terribly? I'm not sure, but it blew my mind. And like, I had trouble sleeping that day because I was like, am I really part of this kind of thing? And you know, back to transparent, you're certainly right. There's stuff that we should know that we don't. You know, there's a lot to improve on. There's some parts of me, if you remember from a while ago, Jagex proposed a player ambassador kind of thing, which was immediately shot down because basically everyone was like, I don't want X or Y or Z in charge. You know, name your least favorite RuneScape figurehead that's in the community.
That was like the streamers would like have the ambassador a follower,
right? It was kind of like let me see what the community thinks, and I will, you know, theoretically, it would basically be the U.S. electoral system, which, by the way, everybody, is still fucked up, and you should look into it because it's ridiculous. That's a whole other topic. But yeah, again, it all depends on who is in charge. You'd always be upset if something went against you. That's just how politics works. So it would never be perfect. And right now, Jagex has the perfect scapegoat. We vote on everything. We get mad at each other. It's a beautiful system for them. But, you know, we're not stupid. We know that that's happening. Anyway, do you have anything else more on that?
I could talk about my woes with that. But back to the original point, Deadman. It's, you know, it's interesting. It's different, but it's not good for the game. It's not. And there's a lot of things that might seem like it's good for the game, and right away there's going to be those guys that come back to play because they want to try out Deadman. Mm-hmm. There's going to be those guys that play old school that switch over, guys that play RS3 that switch over. But we're doing the same thing over and over. What we're doing is we play a game for 6 months, 1 year, and people get bored with it. Instead of filling the game with good, new, exciting content, we split the server off and we put people over here to play this new thing, while the guys that enjoyed this thing over here are now doing this. And then the guys over here that didn't enjoy either of them stay with what they're doing. But by having this separation, we're just branching all the players out until eventually the economy is going to struggle on all different servers to the point where less people are enjoying it. People get bored with the new hype, they quit. People get bored with the bullshit economy over here, and they quit. And the guys over here are like, we have a half the players we used to have. If all my friends are quitting that I know in real life, it's not fun anymore, and they're quitting.
Yep.
And eventually things like this, when you split and divide a community across servers, may not seem like that big of a deal, but it is a big deal. It really does cause problems, not just for old school, but for other servers, RS3 as well. And how long are we going to keep just, instead of being like, okay, I'm not going to settle. PvP can be interesting. You guys have the dev team and the community to give you feedback to find something that we all can agree on without splitting the community. I feel like we're settling on something that just because it's new and hype, we're not getting something that's new and hype and good for the game. Like, we're sacrificing game integrity for hype.
Right.
Not to mention, back to my first thing, 79%. We've hit a revelation in RuneScape. If this passed, which it did, it's the first time a poll has ever passed that the majority of players didn't have any intentions on using the actual content.
You know what?
It's just people that want to see it.
Yeah, and that's important.
That's new. Like, we've hit a new milestone where now we're just not even voting for things we think are good for the game. We're not voting for things we want to do. We're just voting for things we want to see other people do. Mm-hmm. And that's going to open the doors to other things as well. And that's an interesting thought to me that we don't even care if it's something we want anymore. Like, we just want something on the side on our second monitor to watch while we're doing what we're doing. Like, that's a first.
Yeah. And on the smaller scale, stuff that I've talked about PvP wise, just not only is PvP mechanically broken in this game because of the PID system, that's a whole nother topic, but the more PvP you come out with, there's less people playing those different types of PvP. and you're left with struggling content. People get bored, and long term, like you said, it's a downward spiral for sure. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about some social media stuff. This is a section basically where we're going to look through the RuneScape 2007 subreddit, the forums, YouTube, stuff like that. Find ideas that were posted by players, anything really interesting. I think we'll start off with the clue scrolls. Someone on the Reddit designed skill-based clue scrolls, and obviously Keef, Mr. Clue Scroll over here, is very interested in that. I really like the concept, but this is Keef's reign, so I will let you.
Clues.
Explain that.
What are those?
I've never done clues.
So it's funny. I was flipping through Twitter, and someone had made a tweet. I think it was Hey Seduce, if you know who that is, had posted. I just saw a thread for skilling-based clue scrolls. What the fuck? That was all it said. And I just commented on there. I was like, really? Like, fuck that. Without looking into it at all, I was like, that skilling clues? No, thank you. Like, keep it the way it's been. That's what makes clues worthwhile, is that you have to do something where there's a chance, and you can't just sit there and cut a tree for 8 hours and blow your webcam up 3/4 the size of your screen and get tons of clues. So I actually got to read into it a little more now that I've seen a few different things posted, and I like it. And basically, if you guys don't know what it is, it's skilling that provides clue scrolls. And it's not just the idea, they have broke it down 100%. And Andrew, I'll provide the link for you if you want.
Right, yes. YouTubers and SoundCloud people, there will be a link in a description for you for the full, it'll be an Imgur album that walks you step by step through the design concept.
The basic idea is you can do certain things. Like, let me pull this up real quick. It's fishing. Where is it? Fishing, mining, woodcutting. All these things provide, and I'm sure there's going to be other ways as well, provide a chance for a clue scroll. For instance, if you want to get an easy clue with mining copper tin, there's a 1 in 1,024 chance of getting a skill-based clue. Now, the skill-based clues, the big thing that makes this interesting to me is that they're not just easy clues like you would get from pickpocketing a hand member. They are their own unique style of clue scroll. They are things where you would have to go talk to a guy that is, like, speak to the Mage of Zamorak, or anagrams that have different tiers for the anagrams that are new. Challenge clues for, like, easy, it would be craft an air, fire, water, and earth room within a time span of 15 minutes. It's stuff that is different, unique, and we haven't seen it before. Not to mention new things from the rewards, skilling-based rewards. It's kind of like everything that had Artisan that was good out of Artisan, taken out of a skill and given as a supplemental reward here. Things like a third age pickaxe, third age hatchet, fishing bag, woodcutting bag, smithing bag, herb bag, which we're already getting, so I don't really know why that would even be added there. But construction bag, things that store fish, logs, bars, teleport scrolls to, like, Kami Bank, Granite Mine, Agility Pyramid. There's a lot of really neat things that these can bring to the game. And it will also revitalize skilling, which I think that one of the biggest things I've seen on Reddit are just skillers are so tired, and they're just getting more and more vocal with all these PVM updates, all the bosses, all the Slayer updates. This is finally something that will make Slayer or skilling more interesting without just completely revamping new areas to skill. Like, it's just a small little update that will make skilling more enjoyable. And I think even for someone like me who doesn't do skilling, it would make me more interested in, hey, when I get on for a few hours tonight, I'm going to go fish and see if I can't get some of these new clue scrolls. You know, like, it
certainly broadens things. And even for people like us, I mean, now theoretically, you as a clue scroller can actively be fishing and improving your account. Like, one of the hardest things I struggle with is nothing I do that's improving my account is entertaining. So I have to find a way, after my 5 or 6 hours of streaming, to get up and play RuneScape. Now there's a way to be entertaining theoretically while doing some of this boring stuff. So that's, on our side of things, that's really nice.
Not to mention things like fishing. You go to Zulrah and you get infinitely more sharks than you would get in the time that you fished. This skilling, unless you enjoy it, isn't worth doing unless you need it for a requirement or you like it. Like, there's no reason to go fish sharks. So this gives you a reason to do it. And I think with enough planning and content added into it. It seems like a pretty simple update, and it shouldn't be anything that would be too hard. And I would love it. I would totally vote for that in an instant.
Yeah, and the nice thing about it is it's one of those things that would span all levels of people. We'd have easy, medium, hard, elite, theoretically, or it could just be one tier. Whatever Jagex decides. In the latest player, the latest priority poll we saw, skilling did pretty well. Granted, it wasn't the outstanding thing, but there's definitely people clamoring, as you said, for skilling content. I think the most wanted thing we saw out of that, the most thing that had the most it should be happening now, is solo content, and I think a lot of quest stuff. But skilling was definitely the most consistent across the board. People want skilling content, and this is a great way to do it. I like you were talking about the rewards; they're really cool, and this is just a list that this one guy theoretically has come up with. I love the Ring of Nature. It's a ring of stone that turns you into a RuneScape bush. Stuff like that might not necessarily be worth a ton of money, but would just be fun, quirky, and cosmetic.
I mean, let's be real. Look at hard and elite clues right now.
Right.
90% of the uniques are worthless.
Yeah.
And cosmetic only, or headbands and croziers, and there are certain things that have use, but no one buys them for anything. And things like the Ring of Nature and these bags will just be more functional or cosmetic versus getting 15% better XP when stuff which was one of the big problems people had with Artisan.
Right.
Skilling ramp was there was just so many dumb rewards and so many just OP rewards where I don't think that a third age pickaxe, it's not gonna be this one hit quit on fucking the top end tier.
The dream.
Think about third age itself as an armor is it's some of it's best in slot, but most of it is a tier between Rune and Bandos or something like that. Yep. So it'll still be relevant between Rune and Dragon. I think if anything, they should make it the same speed as Dragon, the same everything, and that will keep it relevant and keep it rare and worth something. Right. To see the guy out there with the third age pickaxe, it'll still have a value.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I like it on all fronts. There's not much I'm not a fan of. I like that there's function in the rewards, but also unique rewards, and we're not pulling from the same pool. I think that's great. And watching skillers do clues, I think that's really cool, actually. It's one of those things that, once Jagex came out with emote clues, they said to a bunch of people, mostly pures, fuck you, you can't do hard clues anymore because of blue d'hide. So,
or the prayer requirements.
Yeah, so yeah, I really do like it. I think there's definitely stuff to think about. Some of the teleport scrolls might be redundant or, devalue other things, but that's for Jagex to do. I think this is a great little template. I hope it gets noticed. Sometimes getting updates noticed on the Reddit or anywhere is just maybe a JMod saw it one day. That's how I got the Arim staff rework pulled. So it's kind of a lot of luck. Hopefully it stays relevant enough that
I know that it currently it's almost 900 upvotes, and it's the #1 thing on the top Reddit at the moment. So
someone's probably seen it.
I believe Matt K or someone has also actually commented. It was Jagex Day says they love the idea. I forget who Day is specifically. I think the QA
without being while still desperately trying to be politically correct. I think she's the Asian woman, but I'm not totally sure.
I know what her race is. I mean, what her position.
Oh,
I think she works with Ash.
She might be the QA person, or she's Ash's little helper. I don't remember.
But whoever she is, hopefully she doesn't just go on Reddit to say I like this. Hopefully she says I like this. I'm going to take this to the next meeting and say, look, this is something that has 300 comments, 900 upvotes. Let's at least hear the guy out, get some poll suggestions, and then just kind of go from there and see what they think, because clearly it's more upvoted than Mod Ash's next GIF that you'll see. This is something that is relevant, and it's not just a funny picture.
It did better than the average Mod Ash GIF. That should tell you something.
That means something.
The community liked this. Okay, so another piece of skilling content and again we are swiftly approaching time in which we should be winding down, but let's get one more of these Reddit things in. The blood tree, which I think is my personal favorite from relatively recently. My apologies for not having credit for the designers here, but again, in the description of wherever you're listening to this, there ought to be something giving credit. But the Blood Tree, really cool. For me, mainly, it's Wilderness Revival. I love that. Just functionally, I love Wilderness Revival. I think it's important to this game, but also just this is the way the game's PvP was meant to be played, out in the wilderness. So I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. There's a little question in terms of balancing with the original concept. I'm not super sure how some of this stuff would work. It does imply that we'd be having a new short bow, which is a scary thing. But if it works, all the more power to you. I think it's very interesting conceptually. Maybe needs a balancing look, but I love the concept. Make the wildy more important. It's I guess relatively similar to, and I don't remember what they were called, but the trees that you cut for bolts in RS3 when that came out. It became a daily thing. This would be literally an active thing that you could do regularly and just make money off of theoretically. So again, reviving skilling a little bit. Interesting concept. What do you?
One of my big qualms is the 1 in 10,000 chance to receive 1K blood runes. I saw someone, I don't have this info on hand, but I saw someone ran the numbers of when you're combining these things to make the runes, how fast you could do them in theory, and to do 10,000 to get it was way too OP at the current the way that was set up. So I think they had narrowed it down to a 1 in 10,000 chance to receive 200 was more relevant, or else blood runes are going to be hit hard, and crafting them currently isn't possible, if I'm not mistaken, but they're talking about making them craftable in Zia. So if we ruin them now, Zia is going to be pointless at this point.
The one thing I was kind of I saw that at first and had the same reaction, but I guess when I thought about it, if it's a 1 in 10,000 chance cutting something that is slower than magic logs.
It's not for cutting them though. It's with putting the blood leaf with the essence to make a blood rune.
Right.
You have a 1 in 10,000 chance for every tick, or something, or I forget exactly.
There's a 1 in 4 chance the blood tree drops a blood flower instead of a bird's nest. This flower can only be used on a blood tree in a different location. When used on a blood tree in a different location, the player notices the tree is mature. When a tree is mature, it can be drained for 1 blow of blood sap, which is tradable. And then the blood sap
70 rune crafting there
is used
70
for
rune crafting, blood talisman. For every tick you're wood cutting, there's a 1 in 10,000 chance for every tick, not log cut.
Oh.
And that's when they ran the math on tick count and time.
All right.
And all that, it was just way too much. Maybe if it was a 1 in 10,000 chance per log, that'd be different.
Yeah.
But
I mean, 1K blood runes when you think about it, 300K, not that crazy, but certainly something that would. I don't know. I guess it all comes down to how many people take advantage of this content, and if it truly is in those places in the wildy. For those of you who don't have the picture in front of you, the 3 places we're talking are just northeast of the demonic ruins in about level 45, I think it is. There's 3 trees. There's one just east of the mage arena between the deserted keep and the entrance to the mage arena, the lever, and then there's one between Lava Dragon Isle and the lava maze. Those are not exactly super safe locations. The one place that would be, I guess, revived to some extent would be between Lava Dragon Isle and the lava maze, but already Black Chin people are there, so it would be kind of a double check. Either way, it all comes down to, it's one of those things that Jagex has to make a call balancing wise if this was coming into the game. Will too many blood runes come into the game? It still has to be a good way of training. This would have to eclipse every other method of woodcutting. So it's a little tough. It's certainly, the guy wrote in, he knows his RuneScape well. He wrote in the one thing that he knows is going to work, which is alch value. This would be something you could alch. Fletchers would fletch it, buy it for the XP, etc., etc. But in terms of balancing with the blood runes, that's definitely a concern. But I love the concept. The effort put into it gets a big big A for effort on my front. But other than that, definitely a lot of balancing to think about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's well thought out to an extent, but I think that adding more weapons and gear needs to be the big thing. Is you don't want this slow power creep to a point where because let's be honest, these are gonna flood the game eventually. 1 in 4 chance to get the flower, and then to make that into the juice with Vambraces. Their Vambraces will be in the game.
Oh yeah, for sure. It wouldn't be something rare for sure. But
so if everyone's
it
going
would
to
take
get these,
precedence, I
make sure
suppose.
they're not too ridiculous
Right.
on the power creep.
All right. That is all the time we have for that. Let's move on. We've got a couple questions from you guys in the community. Again, if you would like to tweet us, send us Twitch messages, do whatever you got to do. I'm sure once we have a name for this, you can tweet us using the hashtag of the name of this podcast, which Keef has promised 6 months of OS Buddy Pro to someone who can come up with a name that we end up using.
Find
So
something interesting for us.
if you need
Keep in
some
mind, though, it
incentive.
has to include myself and Andrew somehow in the title, and don't directly relate it to RuneScape. While it is primarily RuneScape tonight, that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll always be 100% RuneScape. So RuneScape not in the title, and both of us. If you come up with something creative, tweet it to us, inbox us. If we pick yours, I'll definitely hook you up with some OS Buddy Pro. So.
And it's very possible in the future, just to get a little meta here, it's very possible in the future we will have weekly guests. So if you have suggestions for people you would like to see, feel free to leave that as well. And OS Buddy devs are certainly
I
on our
love that
list.
idea. I think it would be so awesome to get Jagex Day on here to answer questions about whatever they do.
Oh yeah,
or
I mean JMods. I mean,
updates,
let's
or,
certainly.
Or let's say, like I mentioned earlier, Matthew from OS Buddy to
Right.
talk about stuff they're planning. Because I can tell you right now, like I've talked with Matt in the last week or two, and he says that they're doing something that will revolutionize the way we play RuneScape through the client. It is the biggest thing that they've ever considered doing, and I can't say too much because he wasn't really supposed to tell me, but it's awesome. There are some really, really cool things coming out with OS Buddy in the near future, and I would love to have him get on here and kind of announce them and talk about them. So,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. From Mr. Ian Day, that's at Ian McEwen2 on Twitter. The Scottish laddie, I'm assuming. Your name's McEwen, for God's sakes. What do you think of the upcoming Slayer update? Do you think the hype will die down soon after it comes out?
Of course. I mean, everything is, that's not just in RuneScape, but everything is hyped when it's something new and exciting. And then it comes out, and it's either as great as we expected or not as good. But even if it is as great, it only lasts for so long.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be farmed. Let's not get into the whole 95-91 debate here, because I feel like that would have prevented some of the hype dying down if they had just stuck with their gut and left it at 95. But being at 91, not halfway to 99, there's a lot of players with 91 plus Slayer. I don't have those numbers on me on hand currently, but there are a lot of players, which means there will be a lot of people that are doing right now what we talked about with farming points, canceling stuff, and just grinding as many of these tasks as possible. I'd say give it 3 weeks after release. Prices will crash down, stabilize, and the content will be just grinded out to the point where it's not hype anymore, and it's just kind of the part of the current flow and meta, and people are doing it kind of like Zulrah because it's just good money.
Yeah, right now, for those of you wondering, there are just over 7,500 players who have 91 Slayer. And of course, there's, with that update looming, more and more people. So I would wager, by update, we're talking probably 10,000 at most.
Yeah, I know tons of people currently that are just like grinding to 91 before the update, which they haven't even released when that's going to be coming out really. They've given us like an idea of a time frame, but we have no real knowledge, like, because of what we talked about earlier. There's so much else coming out with the update with Slayer. It's not just about 2 bosses being into the game. There's more, so that's got to be QA tested to the point where it's functional. But
Please QA tested, God, please. But yeah, I'm excited. I don't know. Glaycore boots, just like that's basically what we're getting. Glaycores were my jam. Now I really hope Cerberus is fun. That's what I'm mostly concerned about. I'm really excited for that.
That's one of the things I love about Zulrah is it's
Zulrah's fun,
interactive
yeah.
and fun to me.
Fun.
Like, even though I've gotten almost everything from it, it's still enjoyable to do. I hope they can do that with Cerberus, where it's not just like stand in this spot and shoot it until it's dead. Like, make it interactive, but not over. Don't have to overcomplicate everything. You don't have to give things 3 phases and make it tribrid and hybrid and stuff. Just make it enjoyable.
The nice thing with difficulty at this point is all they have left to go on really is just making boss fights last longer. It doesn't necessarily have to be this will take 6 years this will take you your whole inventory supplies, you have to be max combat. Just make it last a long time. Zulrah's biggest balance problem right now is you kill it in a minute to 2 minutes. So difficulty doesn't necessarily have to come with guaranteed damage. In fact, that's really, really annoying. Any boss, and that's pretty much where RS3 is at this point. Bosses just are made difficult because there's guaranteed damage. Add length. Length is a great way of adding artificial difficulty.
Where do you
balancing
balance risk in there though? Because if it
See,
isn't
that's-
guaranteed,
That's
see
the other thing is like
if you
have
don't
to,
hit
yeah.
these 40 hits, you never will have any risk of dying.
Yeah.
You just sit there with an inventory of
It's got to
pizzas
be at this point. You come out with a high boss. There has to be prayer switching is probably a thing. Movement and positioning is probably a thing. There's only so many mechanics you can go off of. So, guaranteed damage is one that no one likes, but is probably going to be a piece. The Kraken, Zulrah, and Thermi are all really good examples of that, and they're all the newer end of bosses. So I'm guessing that's what we can expect. But I think we're both excited. Also,
Did you just call the Kraken fun?
No. Just
Okay.
just that like it's no that shit is
I
like
love
they
the
all
Kraken
have the
tasks,
mechanic
but
of
holy hell,
yeah.
those are AFKs.
They all have the mechanic of just doing damage to you no matter what you do. You can't help it, unless in Thermi's case you decide to try hard and walking bosses. I don't know if that's an intentional mechanic. I suppose Jagex can do what they want in terms of preventing that, like Corp with stomp damage, but I don't know if Thermi's real intent is that you're able to walk it. Same with Calfight Queen. But that's a whole other thing. One last question. What is the future of your RuneScape account, Mr. Iamkeeferz?
Oh dear. You didn't tell me that question. I
didn't.
I don't remember that one.
Honesty will be...
I mean, obviously, with Slayer coming out, I fully foresee getting 99 at some point this year, especially with that update. I can't commit to it because I'm one of those players that just does whatever I want, whenever I want, whatever's interesting. I might go back to Slayer, that update come out, and hate it. It may not be fun. The rebalancing was shit, and I'll sit there and just be like, done. Like Slayer is a lost cause for me. I'm going back to Cave Horrors. Or Skilling Clues may come out, and I'll sit here and be like, yo, I loved fishing back in the day, and now that I can get elite clues from fishing hand sharks, I might sit there and do that for a while. Like there is no plan with me. A lot of these streamers have plans and they have series that they run. I'm not one of those players anymore. I used to be like that, but now I just kind of do what's fun whenever I want. And future updates will definitely change that pathing around a good bit, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. For me, it's pretty simple. It's finally max melee, maybe get my ass on 99 prayer, and maybe start PKing again. Obviously, those of you who watch my stream know that I'm not going to PK anytime soon. By the way, this question was from Mr. Not a Cow at NotRossRS.
Cow.
Mr. Cow. Fucking Ross. Anyway, sorry. It's max my account and revisit PKing. It's kind of the thing that's looming on my mind. I started off as a PKer on this game. It's why I wanted to play old school. Primarily, it was an opportunity to start fresh with a different type of account. Now I've kind of slipped back into a maxed account, and you know what? I love Darroch PKing. Maybe I can get over the mechanics and the shit toxic PK community and hope that I can find some enjoyment and maybe some interest from the community watching my stream for that. So that's, I guess, my plan. But other than that, again, it's updates. If updates come out and interest me, if somebody says something nasty and or something nasty happens and the faith meter, the Jagex faith meter that is really low right now, continues to go down, it's to a point where, as we were talking about earlier, you're invested in this game, but there's, a good, from Keef and I's perspective, a good stream can only be good if we're having fun, and if that stops, there's really no point in doing it. So it all depends if Jagex keeps a good game going and, community is strong and all that stuff, but, plan is moving towards PKing for sure.
I have a question for you now that you weren't prepared for, probably.
Do it! I'm ready!
This came from Skilling for Max Dale. He wants to know if you could bring one item into the game, what would it be and why? Just one item. Doesn't have to be something that was previously in the game. It could be something completely unique, your own concept, whatever.
I don't know if this counts, but I would do the revival of the Arim staff, and that's not necessarily bringing a new item in, but it's effectively creating a new item, so I'm going to cheat and say that.
Oh yeah, that item is basically not existent.
Let's be honest. The Arim staff might as well not exist. I would love it's a beautiful brainchild of Barrows Hood members, and then I was like, all right, I'll help you guys get this publicity, and here we go. Oh my god, next thing we know, it's getting pulled, and it's 74%, man, and it's so beautiful. The lore is perfect. It's just, it works so well.
What is? I don't
Makes me
remember
sad.
this. What was the revamp on it?
Long story short, give it Sarah Strike, and that's it. You look through balancing. It's a two-handed weapon. It's not going to do better than the next best thing, but it gives people an option in a PKing setting to be really good against meleeers. It lore-wise, the Barrows brothers are Saradomin warriors, so it works. It makes everybody happy. It's balanced. It might not be extremely useful, but it certainly changes things. And it's one of those things. It just fits perfectly in every way possible, and we were so close. And I was like, it's gonna get repulled, and then Jagex chose the GE tier.
Bible thump.
Yep. Well, folks, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to Currently Unnamed. The problem with that, by the way, is there's a podcast run by Adam Savage and his people at Tested.com. It's called Still Untitled. So in case your suggestion is something along the lines of, like, no name, it's been done. But thank you so much for watching and listening over on YouTube, SoundCloud, and, of course, the initial Twitch stream. You can obviously find me on any social media platform at BarrowsBOY. Twitch.tv/BarrowsBOY is where I spend most of my time. You can find Keef, almost the same deal. Twitch.tv/Iamkeeferz. Twitter at Iamkeeferz. Check out our YouTube channels for the recorded versions. These should be going up every single Saturday. We'll have guests. Remember to send in your requests and suggestions for guests, as well as the name. Win 6 months of OS Buddy Pro. What could go wrong? And, of course, send us in your questions every week. We'd love to answer them. It can be anything, not even RuneScape related. So thank you so much for listening. Keef, any last words?
You've covered it.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully see you next week. Bye-bye.